So, why would life need an antidote? And what exactly is this chaos that Jordan Peterson says we need a remedy for? Today, we're going to break down the core philosophy behind his hugely influential book, 12 Rules for Life. And you'll see it's way more than just a self help list. It's really a deep dive into how to find meaning in a world that, let's be honest, can feel pretty overwhelming.
You've probably seen this book everywhere. It became a global phenomenon promising order and structure in a chaotic world. But here's the thing. To really get what the rules are about, you first have to understand Peterson's diagnosis of the human condition itself. And it all kicks off with a really fundamental problem.
Okay, so the core idea of the whole book isn't about politics or society or even the economy. It's about the built-in difficulty of just, well, being a conscious human being. Peterson's whole point is that before we can even think about fixing the world, we have to get real about the nature of our own existence. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds incredibly bleak, right? But for Peterson, this isn't pessimism. It's just a foundational truth. It's something major world religions have been talking about for thousands of years. It's not some bug in the system that needs to be patched. It's a core feature of life itself that we have to face head on. And this is the crucial distinction he makes. The fundamental struggle we all face doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from within. We're finite, we're vulnerable, and we're totally aware of our own mortality. That built-in fragility means that suffering is just part of the deal of being human.
And that, right there, is the million-dollar question the book really tries to answer. If life is inherently hard, what are we supposed to do about it? How do we justify our existence when we know hardship is coming? This is where Peterson introduces his map of reality. Okay, so according to Peterson, you can understand all of human experience as this constant dance between two massive archetypal forces. They're not like things you can point to in the world, they're more like the very fabric of how we experience the world. And he calls them chaos and order. So let's break this down. Order is the world of the known. It's your daily schedule, your home, the social structures you live in, tradition. It's what gives you security. But too much of it, and you get tyranny. Now, on the flip side, you have chaos. Chaos is the unexpected. It's where all the creative potential is, but it's also where the danger lies. It's that feeling you get when you suddenly lose your job or a relationship falls apart out of nowhere. Peterson loves using the Taoist symbol of yin and yang to explain this because these two forces aren't just opposites, they're totally intertwined. Right in the heart of the most stable, predictable order, there's always a little seed of chaos, that potential for everything to just fall apart. And out of the most terrifying chaos, a brand new, stronger order can actually emerge. The point is, neither one is good or evil. They're just the basic realities we all have to learn how to navigate. So if a life of pure order is just stagnant and boring, and a life of pure chaos is completely destructive, where do you find meaning? Well, Peterson's answer is pretty clear. You find it right on the razor's edge, that thin line right between them. This is the sweet spot. Think about it. You need enough structure in your life, enough order, so you're not just crippled by anxiety all the time. But you also need to be pushing into the unknown, into chaos, just enough so that you're constantly learning, growing, and adapting. Too much safety, and you become rigid and fragile. Too much chaos, and you just fall apart. And have you ever had that feeling, when you're so locked into a task that's challenging, but you can just manage it, and you completely lose track of time? That's what psychologists call a flow state. Peterson argues that this feeling, that subjective experience, is what meaning feels like. It's the feeling that makes the whole struggle of existence feel worth it. Okay, so that's the big philosophical picture. But how do you actually walk that line? How do you put this antidote into practice in your day-to-day life? Well, the answer is a bit of a paradox. You do it through rules and responsibility. And yeah, that's a pretty common reaction. Like, more rules? Seriously? Who needs that? But Peterson often points to ancient stories, like the one about the Israelites dancing around the golden calf after they were freed from slavery in Egypt. The moment they had total freedom with no structure, it immediately turned into impulsive, hedonistic chaos. They just became slaves to their own passions. And this gets to the paradox at the very heart of the book. True freedom isn't just the absence of constraints. It's about voluntarily adopting a structure, a set of principles that allows you to aim at something worthwhile. It's about choosing your burden, taking on the heaviest responsibility you can possibly manage.
because that's what gives your life purpose and direction. And that's the very meaning that makes suffering bearable. So the rules themselves are the practical steps for walking that line. Clean your room isn't just about being tidy, it's about confronting the chaos in your own life that you can actually control and establishing some order there first. Stand up straight with your shoulders back is about physically embodying a willingness to face life's burdens head on. It's all about creating a stable base of order, starting with yourself and your immediate surroundings. So, where does Peterson get all these ideas? He argues that they're not some new invention. They're actually time-tested maps for how to be a human, and he derives them from two really old sources: evolutionary biology and ancient mythology. Now, that is a wild claim. What he's saying is that things like social hierarchies aren't just some recent cultural invention we came up with. He suggests they are an ancient, almost permanent feature of life on this planet. In his prime example for this, the lobster. Seriously, lobsters have been around for 350 million years, and they compete for status in dominance hierarchies. The little nervous systems that regulate how they respond to winning and losing are ancient, and this suggests that our own psychological wiring for navigating social structures is incredibly deep-rooted. He makes a similar argument for ancient myths and religious stories. He says we shouldn't read them as bad, primitive science. We should read them as profound psychological dramas. Stories like Adam and Eve confronting the serpent of chaos in the garden, or Cain's resentment spiraling into murder. For Peterson, these are archetypal guides that teach us how to act in the world, how to turn chaos into habitable, life-sustaining order. So let's just pull this all together for a second. The starting point is life is hard. That's a given. The antidote isn't chasing happiness, it's the pursuit of meaning. You find that meaning by walking that fine line between the security of order and the potential of chaos. And the way you stay on that path is by voluntarily taking on responsibility, starting with yourself, using the timeless wisdom that's encoded in our biology and our oldest stories as your guide. Ultimately, the whole book is a call to action. It's a call to abandon things like nihilism and resentment, and to accept that the deepest meaning in life is found by confronting its difficulties with courage and with truth. It's about choosing to be the hero of your own story. So, as we wrap up this explainer, the last question is really for you to think about. In your own life, your career, your relationships, your personal goals, are you playing it a little too safe, stuck in the land of order? Or are you maybe lost in the turbulent currents of chaos? Where is your line? And what's the next small step you need to take to walk along it? Thanks for joining us for this explainer. We'll see you next time.